Time for a Nintendo project. Let's take these 400 Super Mario Bros. Decals and put them on the beam in the Nintendo room. Hey Nintendo fans and collectors, Lithium here from my channel Nintendo Collecting. When we purchased this home, I had a vision of covering this beam in Super Mario blocks to not only make this a Nintendo room, but to make it Super Mario Bros. Themed. He's the most iconic character from Nintendo, and I think just being in this room, while it looked that way, would be really cool. So not only am I going to cover this side of the beam over here, we're also going to do the underside, probably the pole here, and likely the area over here as well. That does mean 400 Mario blocks. Most of them will be blocks, but some of them will be question mark blocks, so that if you're by the beam, some people might want to just fake punch up into it and not break it, hopefully, of course, or damage it in any way. So here are the different blocks that we have. The normal block that we're going to be using, there's a lot more of these than everything else. Then we have some of the question mark blocks as well. Those are just sealed, so it's kind of hard to see. Let me just move that for you. Then we have these ones where it's punched out already. And then we have some of the ground blocks and some of the blocks that you climb the stairs to get to the end of the level. So we're going to put these up. It's going to be several hours probably to get all of these, but my wife's going to help me. We're going to take off the back of the peels and try and line them up as best we can. Let's get to it. 5 of them are up and they're looking pretty good, but this is a slow process. I really like how you can barely tell that there's a seam in between the decals, and what I am noticing is that this wall is not level. So there's a little bit of white exposed below this decal. I'm going to have to paint it black, and then we're going to add decals on the bottom of the beam so you won't even notice in the future. One entire row or line is done of the decals. We had to decide where to put these special blocks. We could also just cover over the bricks later on, and like I said, the gap underneath in some areas is pretty bad, so I'm definitely going to have to paint that black. One of the better ideas I think we had was to put blocks here, because in this space we walk right past here with a Nintendo table, so when you walk by you can kind of act like you're punching one of the blocks. So there's about 40 of them going the length this way. I still have to cut one and put one on the end, but we're going to now cover the underside of the beam matching this design. Roughly 100 blocks in, and this is really starting to take shape. I love the 3D look of these question mark blocks and the used up block as well around the corner. What I am noticing is this is more challenging than I thought. I'm really happy that my wife's here to help me take off the sticker backing and then do this, because it would have taken me a lot longer. And working underneath the beam, looking up the whole time, is obviously a bit of a problem. We decided to do black on this edge and also black on the under edge, because this white seam that you can see we're going to cover up obviously with marker or paint of something like that. And in this second row on the underside of the beam, we've decided to do a used up block here. We don't need any more because there's no side to that one. So I have a few more things like that in the design. Halfway through the second row, let's keep going.
While applying the decals, the most important thing is 1, make sure they line up correctly with the other bricks, and 2, get rid of any air pockets or air bubbles using some sort of a credit card is what I thought works the best. So the first thing is to line this brick up with the left side, or the one side, to make it look like they're smooth continuous bricks, and then try and line up the top as well. If I can work the top, basically the 2 sides, then I can make sure that this is going to work out properly. So now I'm going to grab a credit card and make my way from one corner across to the other corner, dragging this credit card across and trying to get rid of any air bubbles or air pockets that were formed. Once doing so, it looks like it's pretty well connected to the other bricks, and I've been decently happy with the results so far. But please keep in mind, once you start using the credit card for these decals, they were pretty much locked onto that beam and I couldn't really move them anymore. Any mistakes, I would try and hide with black permanent marker or using a marker that looked brown if I happen to leave any gaps in between the blocks.
This is now the 4th day of putting up blocks. Essentially what my goal was is to do 1 row down this beam a day. So I'm doing the 3rd row right now. Hopefully we can finish that tonight, and then tomorrow put on the last row. And then after that, maybe underneath the space over there and also underneath the space by the Mario wall, that will be the last day. So maybe a 6-day project, roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours each day. This is the final product of the entire beam being covered. It took us roughly 5 hours over several days, and it was definitely more of a chore, but the final result looks spectacular. It extends along this entire 28-foot beam that's roughly 40 inches wide and maybe roughly 12 inches down from the ceiling. The top little bit is definitely not having a sticker decal on it, but I think that doesn't really matter. It's just really good with this 3D effect. The edges that looked a little bit white, we went over with a permanent marker wherever there was some sort of gap in the seam work. I especially like how it looks underneath the Mario wall. It fits in really well with this space. We thought the decals looked so good on the beam, we decided to add some clouds to the ceiling, but not only the clouds, but the angry sun from Super Mario Bros. 3 is looking over us now while we're gaming. So the entire ceiling has some of them all the way throughout the room to really make this feel like it is one Nintendo room. Basically, it's like a Mario world. To complete the look, we used some Blick decals. This is Mario jumping into a star to get the power up, and a Goomba on the bottom. On the other side of the post that is holding up my basement, we gave Luigi some love and some other characters, and then we have the warp pipe on the back of one of the shelves in the room as well. Finally, because the beam looked so good, we decided to add some decals to the flooring down here as well. When you enter the Nintendo room, you see the Welcome Super Mario mat, but then you have this very slippery decal flooring. Most of the reason why I decided to do the flooring was because I had ceramic tile down here, but when we were doing construction on the main floor in the house, we had the tool, the jackhammer, in order to get rid of the tile flooring, and I just went ahead with it, so we had concrete down here, and that's why I made this. If you're wearing socks though, it is pretty slippery. I do have to put adhesive to it, and it looks great with that Mario Kart on it as well. I wish there was a track like that in the game. I'm happy we decided not to put the decals on this side of the beam because it's covered up with World of Nintendo figures anyways, so you wouldn't be able to see it. If I were to do this all over again, I would have done it a little bit better on the side here because sometimes I just didn't quite cut it the proper way, or maybe this beam wasn't actually square, so there's a little bit of white space here. I would have done different stickers that weren't as glossy, so maybe matte would have been a little bit better, and I would have made them a lot bigger than printing them roughly 8 by 8 inches because this took such a long time, as I said. In summary, the project took roughly 12 to 15 hours with all of the planning on the computer, printing the decals, and adhering them to the beam. We could have probably done this by hand and painted it, but I think that would have actually taken way longer. I would have had more difficulties trying to make all the lines look like they're straight on this beam in particular, and I think that this final result does look fantastic. So thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think of this Mario beam, or if you've seen anything quite similar to it before. Remember, as always, go collect them all, keep smiling while gaming. Thanks for watching, everyone.